Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to the digitally uploaded podcast, the companion podcast to digitally downloaded.net. My name is Alan. I've returned from the grave of England. England's currently a grave. And with me this week, we have the venerable Matt. Hello, Matt.
Hello, Alan. I'm glad you were able to get through one Friday. Or is it? It is Friday still over there. And you're still sober enough to do the podcast. That's the reason that you weren't available for the last couple, right?
Dead set. No, one of them, last month was my birthday, and I was pissed as soon as I got home, which is reasonable, I think. And then the one before, I was just like ill, I think, which also sounds like me. But anyway, we also have Trent. Hello, Trent.
Hello. See, Alan, what you're missing out on is when it's your podcast and when it's your birthday, Matt will do his best, happy birthday, Mr. Smithers impression and sing you happy birthday on the podcast, Jay. You missed that. He did that for me last year. You could have had that.
I could have had that. What a true nightmare that I missed out on that. What a disaster. And Tarvin.
Whoa,
You're
very quiet.
really far away. It's just a bit of tiny Harvard. He has to climb up his mic.
Okay, I need to sit leaning forward from now on then. Is that alright?
You're still very quiet. I don't know what happened, dude.
We'll fix him in the break. We'll fix Harvard good and proper in the break, and then we'll be able to
We also have a guest this week. It's one of the devs of Assault Android Cactus, which is a wonderful Australian game. You should have probably all played it by now, I assume. I have on the PS4, personally. It's not. Welcome to the stream.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I just realized I said welcome to the stream because I'm used to streaming now.
Well, I just rolled with it because I'm that kind of guy, so let's just skip over it. Or we could focus on it for the next 2 hours, if you want.
I actually really appreciate that. I appreciate the ability of someone to just ignore the low-key mistakes and just roll with the disaster, which is, it's the first rule of comedy.
It's like
I learned
say
to ignore
YouTube.
Alan a lot.
A little bit hurtful, but that's okay.
It's pretty much the same as when you say you too to somebody in the wrong context, like they say something. You're like, you too, and it's like, no, I should not have said that. I do not want them to, that was a very specific thing that they said to me. That was not the generic, hey, have a good day kind of stuff.
The worst one of those is when you're at the cinema and the guy, or girl tearing your ticket says, enjoy the film, and you say you too, and you just have to run. That's the only reasonable way to escape the situation, is just to leg it as fast as you can and avoid contact.
Yep, that sounds fair. You can never go to that cinema again, so,
That cinema is off limits as far as I'm concerned. The cinema is cursed. Anyway, we've got a few things to talk about. It's the PS5 launch month, which is a pretty big deal. Also, the Xbox One X launched. No, not the One X. Series X. Why'd they name it like that? Oh my god. So we've got some stuff to talk about there. And we've also got games of December, obviously, which Matt is going to enlighten us upon. We also need to do the Miku for the month, and I'm not happy about it. But Matt, what is the Miku for this month?
That's a good question, Alan. It'll be a Miku song. I don't know yet. I'll pick one.
All right, Matt's going to pick it, and he's going to send it to me, and I'm going to hate listening to it, so let's go.
But it will be Miku.
Yeah. And welcome back. All right, so we've got Games of December for this month coming up, which is super, super exciting. It's a big month. It's Crimbus month, which is pretty good, which means there's always going to be some releases that are going to be coming out and trying to get us to spend our hard-earned dosh on them. So, Matt, what's coming out this month in video game?
Not that much. Now, December's always a kind of quiet month because you lose the back half of it. But there are some interesting games. Let's start with the PlayStation 4. So on the PS4, on December 1, we've got Twin Mirror, which looks all right. Looks pretty good. Spooky.
What a great sell. Yeah, it looks like not shit. It looks like
it looks like a game. Actually, on December 1 as well, there is a game that is very interesting called Empire of Sin. Very much looking forward to that. That is the Romero's new game. And it's like an XCOM thing set during the Prohibition period in America. Yeah, it should be pretty good, I reckon. I'm pretty confident that one's going to be fun. There's also Worms Rumble on December 1. For some reason, somebody thought it would be a good idea to do like a Battle Royale Worms thing in real time. I don't get it.
Matt, who is that for?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Isn't that basically just Scorched Earth?
Yes. Yes, it is. Why would you play anything else if you already have Scorched Earth?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Worms for me is like turn-based nonsense, and now it's real time and nothing. So I don't know. I'll pass on that one, but I'm sure somebody out there will play it.
Sorry, not Scorched Earth. The other Scorched Earth game that is completely real time, Death Tank. Did you guys ever play Death Tank, which is essentially real time Scorched Earth, aka this?
Okay, no, I never played Death Tank actually. Never.
It's the most generic name I've ever heard of.
Then we have, on December 3, we have a Ubisoft game with Immortals Phoenix Rising.
The worst named game of all time.
No,
previously known as Monster.
Alan, you and I both know we've covered enough Japanese games. He's not the worst named game of all time.
Remember when it was Gods and Monsters?
That's such a much better name, though. It's so good. Gods and Monsters is just good.
They got like sued by Coca-Cola Company or something, so you know, I understand.
Yeah, they got sued by Monster Energy Drinks for using the word monster in their title.
It was too gamer. They couldn't command the gamer fuel.
Yep. Mountain Dew never would have done this. They would have just rolled with it.
They should have called it Gods and Code Red.
Moving on, December 3 has a little game that I actually wanted to call out on the podcast because it looks like, I've actually seen it in action. I saw some streamer play it on PC, and it's good fun. It's called Fogs. It's
just seen the emote. That's called Pog.
It's this two-player kind of cooperative game where both people play as a head of a dog attached on one body, and they need to navigate through puzzles and stuff. It's all very silly and charming. It's actually quite cute. I quite like it. I'm keen to give it a go. But yeah, I've mentioned that one. On December 4, there is Dragon Quest XI's Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. If you have not played Dragon Quest XI yet for some reason, you can get that on PlayStation 4 now, which is pretty cool.
It's a good game. It's Alan approved as a JRPG.
It is a very good game indeed. So if you haven't played it yet, you probably should have played it by now. But if you haven't, there you go. You can now and still feel good that you're playing a new content. On December 8, here's a game that everybody should be looking forward to. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2. The first one was great.
Oh, let's go.
Absolutely.
I'm too busy playing the Tetris on the Xbox. I don't need 2 Tetris games.
Yeah, but this is Puyo Puyo Tetris.
Yeah, Matt and I know what's up.
Yeah.
The real like, honestly, Puyo Puyo, extremely underrated. It is extremely fun game. Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine on the Sega Mega Drive is the best one of all of them, mostly because of the song. If there was the one person out there who remembers the song that plays in Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine, like, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, it's a great song.
Yeah. Also, the Game Gear version, which slows down and speeds up on the emulation, it's really good.
How hyped were you when they introduced that boss in Sonic Mania then?
Oh, you don't even understand. I played up to that moment because I heard about it, and then I stopped playing Sonic Mania.
Oh,
as soon as I did that boss, I was like, alright, I'm done. I've done the Mean Bean Machine.
This is why YouTube was invented, for, like, just watch the segment.
No, but, like, I want to play Mean Bean Machine. It's really fun, Trent. You don't understand.
Moving on, because
really
Mean Bean Machine was not is not being released in December.
I wish it was. It would make this month.
But Puyo Puyo Tetris is, so definitely check that out. It is gold, that game. All right, December 10, unless it's delayed again, which it probably will be, but I'm going to say it here because right on at this moment as we record, it is still scheduled for release on December 10. Cyberpunk 2077, the Cyberpunk of the contents game.
It is the least hopeful I've been of a game's release ever. Like, I just know that it's not gonna. It's bullshit. It's all just lies.
Yeah, it's all just vaporware. It doesn't actually exist. They just keep. It's this grand troll of the entire.
They're gonna
industry.
release it, and it's gonna be like a fucking thumb drive with a copy of Warhammer 40k Dawn of War. That's all it is. That's what the game is now. I don't expect it to be real. It's not real. It can't be.
But anyway, assuming it does come out, you'll be able to play all 175 hours of it or whatever over Christmas.
I can tell you're gonna sing about that.
Yeah, I'm gonna play the whole 175 hours like overnight. I'm gonna get the game and just in 24 hours knock it out.
Like a real gamer.
Like a real gamer. December 10 also brings us Brigadine, The Legend of Runerzia. I think I said that right. That was a really good Switch game, but nobody noticed it when it was released earlier in the year, so hopefully it gets a second look on the PS4. It's like this tactics strategy game that's got some really great art style to it and stuff. So yeah, on the PlayStation 4 as of December 10. On December 11, we've got Space Invaders Forever, which I didn't even know was coming out on PS4, but it is. There you go. Space Invaders on your PS4, it's just Space Invaders, but that's okay because the Space Invaders is that good. I don't know what else. What do we got? And that's basically it for the PS4. There's a couple of little things that get released. We've got MXGP, which I assume is a bike thing. The last DLC for Neo 2 comes out on December 17. And then December 22 brings Override 2, Super Mech League, whatever that is. And then that's it for the year.
That's a good name. I like that name.
Yeah, there you go.
That's good. That's a good one. That's one for the books.
That's it for the PS4. It finishes on December 22, and then you have to wait till just January, at this stage, 12 for the next game on the console.
Hey, Matt, how many games are releasing on the PlayStation 5 that are only for PlayStation 5?
That's what I'm looking at now, Alan. Thank you for asking. Yeah. Great segue there. Moving on to the PlayStation 5. December 1 brings more Worms. You can play Worms on your PS5 too. So ray-traced Worms, I guess.
That's what I wanted to play on my PS5 for the last month. Yeah,
I think it's the free PS Plus game this month as well, isn't it?
Oh, is it? There you go. You can all play it. We can all play it. Cool. I can see it being the next Four Boys.
I can't wait to add it to my library and never touch it.
There's also an enhanced version of Spirit of the North, which was a nothing game, so I don't know why they bothered to enhance it, but there you go. It's coming out on PS5. Haven comes out on Oh, Haven! There's a game that I've been looking forward to. That was my next game for the PS5. So Haven is like an RPG, but rather than a normal RPG, it's like this RPG that's all about love, and you play as two lovers that need to... No. You, Alan, I swear to God, go and have a look at it. It is not what you think.
Is this going to be that, like, that one time you made me look up that hentai game?
No, I swear to God, this one actually looks legit. This one
Haven?
looks legit. Yeah, Haven. I'm really looking forward to this. Like, genuinely looking forward to this thing. It's not fan service. It's just...
It's a 2002 multi-genre action game.
I don't know
This
what
is
you're...
what we're going to Haven on Steam.
I'll describe it for you. I'll read the description out because I just want to promote this game so much. Does love truly conquer all? Two lovers give up everything, leave behind their lives, and escape to a lost planet to be together. You play these two lovers at the same time as they settle into the unknown and eerie world, explore the planet, searching for parts of material to fix their ship and make it a cozy home. Enjoy life together as a relatable couple, cooking meals, crafting, collecting resources, and engaging in meaningful conversations. Fight against those trying to tear them apart by synchronizing their actions in combat, finding the perfect timing and rhythm while controlling both characters simultaneously. Glide through the mysterious landscape, explore a fragmented world, and fight against what's trying to tear them apart in this RPG adventure about love, rebellion, and freedom.
It's important to note, you missed out the most important detail. This is made by the guys who made Fury. I'm way more interested in this now as a result of that knowledge.
I told you. You never listened to me, Alan. You never believed me.
Should have led with it's made by the guys who made Fury, aka the best soundtrack of the PS4, maybe. And also some of the best combat in the PS4.
Anyway, that's a game I'm very much looking forward to. And as far as consoles go, it's next gen only, which is cool. It's not coming out on PS4. You'll have to play it on your PS5. Ubisoft, the Ubisoft badly named game, is out on PS5 as well. Also, you can play FIFA and Madden in December. They're coming out on PS5. And Pure Tetris is also coming out on PS5. There is a game called Temtem coming out on PS5, which is like a Pokemon thing. Yeah. That's
they're doing the early access on consoles, huh?
I don't know if it's early access or not. Or maybe it's the full release.
I mean, I guess it is full release. I considered it.
I think
weird.
it's released
kind of
technically up to a certain point, and that's the full release, but it's still early access. I think, like on the PC version was.
Yeah, it's interesting how that works. I always think of it as early access because of just how limited, like, what's in there actually is. Basically, like, what feels like the first 10% of a game, but I don't think it actually is early access. I think you're right.
Cool. There you go. Moving on. There's not much else that actually comes out on the PS5 in December. Destiny 2 comes out on December 8. Who cares about that?
Almost like there's no games on the PS5 at all.
And Override 2 Super Mech League also comes out on PS5. It is a launch console, which means there is always that lull after release for a couple of months. So we're in that lull, but at least we'll have Haven to play. I can't wait for Haven. I really can't. It's just going to be such a good game.
Can I get Haven on my Xbox?
I don't know. You can check that. I don't
think so. I don't think you can.
Moving on to the Nintendo Switch, because the Nintendo Switch does have a range of games that are not coming out on other platforms and stuff. So it's a different list slightly. It does start with Empire of Sin that does come out on Switch as well. That'll be the way I play it, I think, because having it on the go sounds good to me. Also on December 2, Shiren the Wanderer, The Tower of Fortune and Dice of Fate comes out. That is the roguelike. In every sense of the word. That's the Mystery Dungeon. Shiren the Wanderer is what started the Mystery Dungeon kind of series, if you want to call it that. And this one is a port of the one that was released on the PlayStation Vita, which is very good. December 2 also brings Sam and Max Save the World, which is...
Hell yeah, dude.
It's fun.
What a good, like, B-tier series.
Yeah, it's good. It's charming. I remember playing it way back on the PS3, and I liked it. So I'm sure I'll like it again. Ubisoft, the badly titled Ubisoft game, comes out on December 3 as well on Switch. Then we've got Fogs, comes out on Switch as well. That'll be the way to play. Pretty Princess Party comes out on December 3 on Switch.
God, dude.
I have no idea what that is, except it's got a proper publisher. I can't remember which publisher it is, but it's...
Published by From Software.
It's got a proper publisher behind it, so who knows? Maybe it's actually good.
I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, well, I know that it's not your kind of content, Alan, but other people might like it.
No one's allowed to have fun.
There is a visual novel that is coming on Switch, Fault Milestone 2 Side Above, which I think is good. I think Fault has. I think Fault has.
Tiny Harvard has reappeared to laugh.
I think Fault has a pretty good reputation, so that one should be good. What else have we got? Gunpig, Firepower for Hire. Have no idea, but the idea of Gunpig sounds good to me. So
Gunpig. For hire.
This is all still by December 3, so there's an awful lot of stuff that's coming out on Switch in the first couple of weeks. Outbreak: The New Nightmare, if you like traditional old school style Resident Evil. I think that's what that tries to be. Liberated Enhanced Edition, no idea what that is, but it has a dude on the little icon here, so maybe people will like it. Doggone Golfing, which is a good name for a game. I think we can all agree on that. If you like your Just Dance, then there's this game called Balla Latino, which I guess is like a Just Dance ripoff, but it's all Latin rhythms, which is actually.
I thought you were going to say something along the lines of, if you like Just Dance is coming out again.
Yeah, Just Dance came out last month or something. It's all right. I broke my toe, so I actually haven't been able to play it. But I like Just Dance. And Latin rhythms, I like Latin rhythms, so I'm actually mildly curious about that game. Commandos 2 HD Remaster comes out on Switch on December 4. Now, that's a pretty good game. And I think it'll be pretty good on the go. So, yeah. John Wick Hex comes out on December 4. That is
It's a Mike Bithell game. It's great.
Yeah. It's excellent. It's genuinely really good fun.
Maybe the best way they could have translated Jonathan Wick.
I reckon so. I honestly think that that game captures the spirit of the license in a way that a lot of licensed games just fail to do completely. I didn't think it'd work because it's like turn-based and stuff, and John Wick is all about big action. But it just works. It's really weird. Mike's a legend. So
you say, Matt, that makes you feel like John Wick.
It does. It does. Minus the dog death. There's no dog stein in that one, which is pretty cool. There's no dog at all. On December 4, Fire Emblem, Shadow Dragon and the Bladed Flight comes out. That's Nintendo's December release. That is a port. It is a port of the original NES Fire Emblem, and it's been localized into English formally for the first time. So I'm actually looking forward to that. I bought the special edition thing. I've got it on pre-order, so that has like a 200-page art book in there and stuff. I'm a big-time Fire Emblem fan, so very much looking forward to that. And this is still all just the first couple of days of December on the Switch. We're still up to just December 4. Running through, Drawn to Life, Two Realms comes out on Switch on December 7. I had no idea that was coming. That's cool. I like Drawn to Life. That was nice. It was a nice game.
No, it was a knockoff Scribble Moss. It always felt like a bad...
It looks like we've lost Alan off his mic a bit. So, Alan, mute yourself for a moment while you fix your mic, and I'll continue talking through what's coming out. Ori and the Blind Forest comes out on December 8 on Switch. That's pretty cool, I think. Ori's a pretty good
The Blind
series.
Forest or the Will-O-Wisps one?
No, Will-O-Wisp is already out there. So Blind Forest is now.
Ah, so they're going back to the first one.
Yeah. Or at least that's what it says on this list here that I've got on Metacritic. I assume it's accurate. Evolution board game comes out on December 10 on Switch. I think that's a good board game. I don't know. I like board games, so I saw it there on the list, so I'll play it. On December 15, Collection of Saga, Final Fantasy Legend comes out on Switch. Now, I'm really looking forward to that. That's the 3 Final Fantasy Legend games that were released on the Game Boy way back when.
I played and finished one of those. They were very interesting. I'll say that. They were, I loved it at the time, but I think that people might struggle a little bit playing those games these days.
Yes, I think so. Yeah. I think that's why they've dropped it in the middle of December, where not so many people will take notice of it and there won't be so many reviews popping up, because I feel like that there is a very core fan base for Final Fantasy Legends still. People like me who like those things on the Game Boy have nostalgia for them. But certainly that is not a series that is going to be a mainstream hit by any means. And the port on the Switch is just straight ports of the black and white games. So they haven't done anything to color them up or remake them or anything like that. So a very odd collection to release, but I'm glad it's there. I'm glad. And then we get into a whole bunch of other kind of little releases leading up to Christmas. There's a game that has an interesting box art called our Lest Collection that comes out on December 24, so I don't think that's going to be very good. They wouldn't release it on December 24 if it was great, but there you go. And then that's basically it for the end of the month. All right, so that's a lot of games on Switch and a fair few on the other platforms. So it looks like if you have money to burn in December, you'll be able to play games, which is good. I remember growing up, December was basically a dead month for game releases. So it's good that now the release schedule does continue right through to the end of the year.
I would have thought back. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I would have thought back in the day, though, the reason it's so dearth of releases in December is that all the parents have basically bought the games from November or the prior month before that, or even the month before that, and are holding them to give to the children, holding it back artificially.
That was absolutely the reason. Like
artificial market,
because everything had to be released on physical media, obviously, because they didn't have download platforms on your Super NESs and whatever. And they had to hit the all-important Christmas catalog, schedule and make sure the logistics were in play and whatever. I think it was the second to last week of November. If you didn't have your game out, you were ruined. You were not going to have a good Christmas with that game. So
yeah. I have very many fond memories of my own Christmas period where my family and our religion didn't celebrate Christmas. I mean, we didn't have anything against it. We'd go for the holidays and hang out. But my grandmother was obsessed with it. When everyone would have to go to the grandparents' house, like the whole extended family. So my mum would buy us presents, and then we'd have them, and eventually had enough money to have a games console, and we had a game. And we'd play it in November or whatever it was, whenever it came out. And we'd have to rewrap it and take it to my grandparents' house and pretend to open it and get excited there as if we'd been given it for Christmas.
Oh, wow, I can't believe I've got a copy of Lee Carvello's putting challenge again.
Well, I mean, it would never be Lee Carvello's putting challenge because my mum was a legend and we never had this whole... she knew exactly what it was that we cared about, and we knew what she cared about because it wasn't, we didn't buy into the Christmas thing of pretending we got a gift from some guy and somewhere off in the other side of the world. But, yeah, very, very fun times.
Yeah, it was.
We had the opposite attitude where my goal was to pretend that I still believed in Santa as long as I could, so I could still get free shit. So my last ever gift was a copy of Platinum Edition Ratchet and Clank 2, which was amazing. It was great. It was on the sale bench at because I saw it at Big W that week before. On the sale bench because it had a broken case.
Bloody hell.
Alan's showing how young he is right now. I was able to buy that myself. I'm an old man. I'm feeling it in my bones. But let's move on. Let's go around and everybody can pick the game or two that they're looking forward to the most from everything that I just read out. I mean, I know Alan is Worms, so we'll pass on Alan.
No, can I say that if it doesn't come out this month, I'll actually die. And I will say on record that I'm looking forward to Worms instead of Cyberpunk. That's the one. If I don't get Cyberpunk, I'm gonna stream Worms for 4 days.
I so hope they delay Cyberpunk now, just so I can hold Alan to that, and he has to stream Worms for 4 days.
I need to stream Worms 4 days in a row. I have to do it. It's just required. It's business.
Cyberpunk. Okay, moving on.
Yeah,
Trent, tell us. You get one game.
Get one game. Okay, so I'm gonna go with Empire of Sin, and I was just about to yell out Empire of the Sun and just be dead inside.
Oh hell yeah! Get an album. Play the album on your PS4. Put it into your disc drive.
Yep, I'm writing Empire of the Sun in my notes.
There you go.
It
should be good. It really should be good. It's like
it should be great.
Romero,
Otherwise, it would have been the Medium, but the Medium's now a January release for Xbox. So Xbox has no games apparently.
Yeah. We're in the
Flipped
same
around.
boat.
And what about you? Pick your one game of the month.
I don't know who you're talking to.
Wait, me? All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. Sorry.
Let's do it.
I was looking at this screen and I was like, I was thinking about a million other things. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So one game. That's all I get. This is so much pressure. Why would you do this to your guests? I mean, I'm meant to be your friend here.
It can't be Cyberpunk.
It can't be Cyberpunk. Well, that's good because I'm not really looking forward to Cyberpunk.
Yes, I'm so glad we got you on the podcast.
Just don't care for it.
Alan's now fuming.
It's okay. It's okay.
Games, that's fine.
Well, I'm
He's
definitely looking
fuming.
forward to getting my free copy of Lee Caravello's putting challenge, but that's a special bonus. For Christmas Day.
There's doggone golfing. That's basically the same thing, right?
I think that's the same thing. Now, for me, I'll probably be Haven out of the lot that are coming out. That looks pretty interesting. But honestly, if I'm telling you guys for real, my backlog is so large that I don't know if I'll get to any games from this month until the time I'm on this podcast 3 years from now.
Yeah, it's been a pretty nuts year, really.
It do be like that.
Like even if you just look at this year and the stuff that's been thrown onto the backlogs because of, even with all the extra time we had because of COVID, it's just been a big addition to the backlog year.
That's right.
I totally get that. Me too. Very much so.
It's because Matt's been too busy playing Call of Duty Cold War.
Hey, that took me 3 hours.
It's like how my game of the
Matt,
month
you don't
was
understand.
Animal Crossing.
It's the most
What's
evidence. So we've got games as art, Matt. This game that just lies about history.
How many war crimes did you commit?
I think it
Too
was
many, yet not
6
enough.
or 7 in the course of 3 hours. I'm not even joking. I'm pretty sure it was
Matt,
6
how
or
many of
7.
those were actually blamed on the Russians, though?
Well, one of them was done to the Russians, so that one.
No, but that was their fault, though. No, you don't understand. It's their fault, so it's
Well,
their
no,
war
it was
crime.
okay because they are Russians. You see, that's the thing. It's okay because they are Russians. I'm pretty sure I did 2 to the Vietnamese. There was 1 to Middle Eastern people.
Like a real Australian.
Oh gosh.
It's a horrible.
Jokes, but that's
It's a
Look,
horrible
game.
game.
I
in every
have
way.
this weird thing where when I recognize something straight up propaganda, like be it the Call of Duty games or even back in the day when they had, what was it, America's Army or whatever, I can actually enjoy them and just sit down and go through it, and I just know, like, I'm not going to take anything away from this, but somebody out there, because they want this to be incredibly popular and they want to spread this message of, some seriously messed up propaganda stuff, has spent an enormous amount of time making this a relatively fun mechanical experience, and that's something I can appreciate with those games, or that's the distinction that I can make with them.
I mean,
I respect that as well. I love the idea of like playing them and laughing, and being like, how can they get away with this? Like,
yeah, I do have to admit, I'm quite a little bit on the edge of the fact that they have gone now and basically decided to try and pretend that a bunch of bad things that happened in history that definitely America did, and were seriously fucked up. Like, I don't know if we're meant to swear on this podcast, but
go for it.
incredibly
C-bomb once.
fucked up things that America definitely did and has totally, admitted to doing, and they were like, but what if it wasn't America? Like, that's the only thing that I've found concerning. The rest of the propaganda is pretty easy to just like shrug off as like, oh yeah, they get paid by American military to include this stuff, so whatever.
I mean, the propaganda doesn't affect me personally. That's not really why I'm concerned about those games. I mean, I can play a game that has meticulously detailed Ronald Reagan in it and not suddenly become a trickle downer. That's kind of it. Doesn't have that effect on me.
It works, Matt. You don't understand.
But
So
what concerns me more?
The gig economy isn't a bad idea.
What concerns me more is not so much the ones that are kind of based on times that are in our living memory. So the last two, this one and the previous one, which is the one you're referencing with the war crime being attributed to the Russians quite infamously, those ones are not so much concerned because the history is on statement of record. Everybody recognizes it. And as soon as those games came out, everybody was talking about it being quite messed up what they did. I have more concern with the ones that are a little bit older, especially the World War II one. And I definitely saw a lot of people out there talking up that they've done a great job of, reflecting what happened in World War II, and they assume that Activision did their historical research to make sure that it was authentic and stuff. And it's a kind of, it's a difficult one as well because obviously Nazis need shooting, but at the same time, that war was a little bit more complex than that. So, just in terms of the behaviour and what the Allies did as well. So that one is a much greater concern to me because that one had really kind of historical revisionism going on in a way that people did actually buy into. So anyway, that's
so. No, what's your game of the month?
That is not Call of Duty. Moving on. Haven. Haven looks so good. It's about love.
There's a lot of historical revisionism in Haven.
It's gonna be so jarring to cut from Call of Duty straight back to Haven.
Yeah, just jamming a grenade into some dude's
I might do a
explodes.
stream with them like back to back, and then just see if I keep the audience for Call of Duty as I start to play Haven instead. It's like that. That'll be pretty funny. See if there's a crossover Call of Duty and Haven fans. But let's move on. Let's have some musics.
No, Harvard. What do you want to play?
Harvard said Empire of Sin.
That was Trent. We're the same person.
Wait, did Alan even say anything?
Yeah, I did, but I got laughed at. So, it's fine.
As always.
Alan said worms.
I did say worms.
Well, because Alan is choosing out of games that will actually release in December, whereas the rest of us were assuming that Cyberpunk.
Yeah, no.
All right,
no,
Harvard,
it's
pick
fine.
a game. Any game.
I'm actually going to be playing Collection of Saga because
Yay!
I did grow up on the first one of that game, and it's been an interesting experience to go back and actually look at that with the eyes of someone who knows how games work instead of some kid with a Game Boy who didn't understand English. I really liked Final Fantasy Adventure for what it was, so I feel like hopefully I have the same experience with the Saga games.
You're not going to.
I'm not going to?
No.
Are they bad?
No.
I love that instantly you're just like, you're going to have bad time.
I mean,
It's going to have a bad time.
Final Fantasy Adventure actually holds up pretty well. And you can play that on the Saga collection if you've got that on the Switch. But these games, they are definitely archaic RPGs, JRPGs. They are definitely games that would not be made today.
Grinding.
It means a lot of grinding. It means the direction, kind of the pathfinding through the game isn't very clear, to be honest, especially the first one. You're going to get all kinds of lost. And you do need a certain level of patience with them to enjoy them. I think they're good for what they are, but then I'm the guy that still plays Final Fantasy 1 on the NES, so...
Oh, sure.
How would
you rate it to Phantasy Star 2?
It's not hard. They're not hard games as such, but the random counter rate is through the roof. You do need to manage inventory because it has that Fire Emblem system where when you use attacks, your weapons break down slowly. And then it's got this really weird system for a bunch of different kind of character types where after enemies die, they drop meat and you can eat the meat, and you eat the meat, you turn into various monsters and stuff. Which is pretty neat, except it's difficult to know what monster you're going to turn into, and half the time you turn into a monster that's much worse than the monster you just were. So it's just very archaic.
That sounds hilarious. I am in.
It doesn't explain itself very well.
And neat so many times just then that my brain shattered, and I can't explain to you why.
It's because you're looking forward to
it makes the game hard to beat.
Well,
Not to
section All right,
Not to jump ahead to our final topic too quickly, but earlier when you were talking about how there've been no changes to these games, I was a little bit thrilled, to be honest, because I know that Square's done a very recent good remake type of game, but I gotta say, a lot of their pseudo remake remasters have been less than anything I'd ever want to play.
Final Fantasy VI.
Do you want to like
Ever.
play the
Sprites.
worst looking version of a game that looked great 20 years ago?
Yeah. So let's just appreciate that at least, these might look like just exactly Game Boy games, but at least they look like exactly Game Boy games.
Yeah, I mean, we will talk about this in the last section, but it's a difficult one. I like remakes that are full remakes, like that Trails of Man. Yeah, that remake is just a masterpiece in its own right, and it's a full remake. But then I also really enjoyed playing the original through on the Collection of Mana as well. So, yeah, it's an interesting question, but I can see, I guess it depends on how well it's done. But remakes can be good, but originals as well can be good. Perhaps the best way to go would be if they just include both on the disc. That would be nice.
That'd be great.
Anyway,
well,
we'll talk about that in the last section. Music time.
I don't know what it is.
We've lost somebody. Somebody went quiet. People keep going quiet on us today.
Me?
Pick a song, Trent. I'm pretty sure Trent's microphone's going to be reliable. Trent, pick a song.
Yes.
Here we go.
Yeah, what do I want to pick? We could go for something from that Tetris game. Everyone was like really excited about something,
Mean
which I was
Bean
like
Machine.
lost.
Oh, Mean
Yes.
Bean Machine.
Yes.
There we go.
Mean Bean Machine.
Mean
See?
Machine. Alan's favourite music song ever. There you go, Alan.
And welcome back. So, if you were one of the 3 people who wasn't a scalper and got a PS5, congratulations. First of all, you've done a amazing job. I can guarantee you're probably playing Demon Souls at this point in time as well, because that is currently the only game on PS5 that really justifies owning a PS5.
Well, it's the only one's that's exclusive, right? Or is it?
No, Bugsnax.
There's also Astros.
And also Godfall. You know Godfall.
Nobody knows Godfall, Alan.
I saw an ad for that and I laughed. I had to laugh at Godfall because A, I didn't even know that game existed, and then B, I thought it was Lords of the Fallen 2. And I was like, that's like kind of the most damning thing I could say about it. But anyway, Demon Souls came out. It's phenomenal. It's extremely good. I have never played Demon Souls 1. But this makes it feel like a game that is palatable in 2020 rather than 2009, I believe Demon Souls was released in. It's an 11-year-old game, so it's, not a spring chook anymore, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, it was dead because the servers have been turned off a long time ago, so there was no way to play it the way that it was kind of designed with all the ghosties running around and stuff. So,
it's
really the weird thing about Demon Souls, which I find kind of amusing, is that it's this big launch title that really shows off the PlayStation 5 in so many ways, and it does it looks great, and it has the frame rate thing apparently. It has a frame rate thing, and it's all good. But the weird thing is they've also preserved a lot of the jankiness of the original Demon Souls in terms of the AI, in terms of the level design, because Demon Souls was kind of a proof of concept as such. It was the first game in the Souls series, and there was a lot of stuff that they refined out for Dark Souls. This is from Software. So I was really concerned going into the PlayStation 5 that the developer was going to fix it. And I didn't want it to be fixed as such. I wanted it to look the part, that's fine, as long as it kept the atmosphere, which they've done a great job of doing. And fixing the frame rates and stuff is a no-brainer. But I did want them to preserve the kind of creative side of things, and I was concerned that they weren't going to do that. Thankfully, when I started to play, it's there in all its janky glory.
It feels like it's been made by Miyazaki still.
It also feels like it was made before Dark Souls. So
it's a bit like chunky and weird sometimes.
It is. It really is. Like the level design, especially, is odd in some places and nastily odd. There are some spots that you're definitely going to get stuck. Sorry?
It's our least favorite place. Can we just go around the circle? Because there is a place that I just despise more than anything else in any video game.
It's got to be that swampy poison area that you fall down.
The fuck swamp.
Yeah, it is one of the worst locations in any video game.
It is
ever.
Absolute hell. It is like you walk through it and you go to the Jellyfish Land. You know, Jellyfish Land in Swampton. It's the worst place I've ever seen in my life. It's full of jellies, and they spin at you. They spin at you menacingly, and if you try and roll, they give you an animation that takes 1.5 seconds for you to recover from, and you can't do anything. Stupid. Bad area. Hate it. Get the game out of my face.
But it's
a good game though. It's really good.
It's kind of, I don't know. I like that about it because
you like the jellyfish.
Well, no, the swamp area is meant to feel like oppressive and really unpleasant, and it does. So I don't know. I liked it. For me, funnily enough, the bit that I was dreading the most in the replay was the first part, because in Demon Souls, until you beat the first boss, you can't level up. You can't. There's no kind of bonfire or save spots along the way, and there are some nasty tricks along the way that make it a challenge. And then the first boss himself is
chuck firebombs. Just yeet firebombs.
Is not too difficult, but at the same time, if you make mistakes, given that you're not leveled up at all, you will die. Especially if you pick the wrong character class. Anyway, I remember when I first played Demon Souls a long time ago. I was new to the Souls games, and I got very stuck in that first part. It took me an awful long time to get through it. So I was a bit worried about it. I'm obviously better at Souls games now, so I didn't struggle this time around. But yeah, that was that first part where the game is willing to throw you into this difficult, challenging RPG without even the opportunity to level up until you've beaten the first boss is something that they would not do in subsequent games. So
I don't know if this is a hot take, but I don't think Demon's Souls is anywhere near as hard as any of the other games in the franchise. I think Flame Lurker is very hard.
You're better at them, Alan.
No, I think Flame Lurker is the hardest the game gets. And
I think honestly, I think you're better at them. I think Demon's Souls is definitely.
I've only ever played Dark Souls 2. I beat Dark Souls 3, including the dickhead boss, the big lord. And then I beat Bloodborne.
Yeah, but Bloodborne, especially because it's faster and stuff, it's taught you about timings and things that...
I guess.
I mean, I know for a fact...
Outside of Tower Knight was horrible. But I think the bosses in general are actually much easier. I think the environments are harder.
Interesting. Guaranteed, dude. It's your experience because I found Demon's Souls, the original Demon's Souls, to be an incredibly difficult game, and I found Demon's Souls this time around to be much easier, and that is just experience.
Well. I did also grind the shit out of it. I got an Uchigatana and I just grinded the shit out of it until I had the best one that I could get. So I cowarded my way through the game as hard as I could. I still haven't finished it. I'm on the second to last boss fight and I got my soul sucked. I didn't like it. It was very upsetting. There's a move in that game that almost made me turn off the game entirely, and it removes a soul level if you get hit by it, and it's also a one-hit kill. It's very not fun. So do not get hit by that attack. Avoid the blue orb. But yeah, I don't know. It seems like the boss encounters in general are easier because there's a lot more puzzly ones. A lot of them seem like they have a correct way to solve it. Whereas in, Bloodborne, it's more just like you need to be better at dodging stuff. You need to be better at dealing with it. And I don't want to spoil many fights because obviously the game is just literally just out, but the Penetrator fight felt very similar to Lady Maria in Bloodborne, which
that's what I'm saying. It's kind of your experiences talking. I guarantee you, if Demon's Souls was your first Souls game, you would.
Oh, it would have absolutely fucked me beyond belief. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, you would.
The swamp itself would have been 17 hours of my life.
I think that above all, Demon's Souls has the biggest variance in difficulty based on kind of like which class you start out with and how you want to play the game.
It is.
It's the true RPG of the series.
Yeah.
It's also one that it just likes to be cruel in a way that other Souls games don't.
It's stupid.
If you play
things in the mine.
If you play badly, for example, the world tendency system is just it's beautifully cruel in the way that if you play badly, the game gets harder, and I really like that. If you're struggling, it makes it so it's even more difficult for you, and that is an element again they would never do again. And I was worried. I was genuinely worried going into the PlayStation 5 that they were going to remove that world tendency system because it was nasty. It was a nasty gameplay element, but no, they kept it. So full props to the developer. And again, I guess we'll talk about this in the last section, but full props to the developer of it for sticking to the creative vision of the thing because
it is quite full on.
It is.
I get it. It doesn't respect you at all, which is great.
Yeah, I would describe this as the ultimate remaster and not actually a remake, if I was actually to put it out there. Because to me, a remake is a lot of things can be reimagined, and they are often reimagined. Your Final Fantasy VII being a recent incredible example. But here, it really does feel like this is running Demon's Souls under the hood with the prettiest coat of paint you've ever seen.
Yeah, that's it. It's definitely, and again, we'll talk about that in the last section because, I don't want to make this whole podcast about remakes. But yes, I totally agree. It's a remaster rather than a pure remake. But PlayStation 5, big console.
It's a physically large console. It is very large on my desk.
I'm concerned
than I expected. It's actually taller than my monitor.
Yeah, because my Xbox, it fits like it's almost like so. It's like a shelf, like a shelf, like a what do you call it?
It is the shelf.
A cabbage. It's the drawer, the door. Wow, I can't speak words. It's where you put books and things. Linen closet. It's in a linen closet. There we go. Yeah, I can
How big
work.
is the Series X? What the hell, Trent?
And so it's in a linen closet, and it's almost like it's only got like 5-10 centimeters at that, and it would be like the whole height of the whole like shelf height. Like my PlayStation wouldn't fit vertically in that.
My PlayStation doesn't fit into my system in any way. I've actually got it sitting on the floor because I just don't know what to do with it.
It's built at a podium, Matt.
It's big and it's ugly.
It's a big boy. I like how it looks.
So
actually.
ugly. It's a reverse ice cream sandwich. It's horrible.
It looks like the casino they're building in Sydney.
It does look like the casino they're building in Sydney. You're super right. I saw a picture of that. Someone tweeted that out a while ago. I loved it. Dude, okay, so I think it's great because it's Sony being the most like flamboyant as they've ever been. Because the PlayStation consoles have traditionally been VCRs, right? They've always had like a VCR of some description. This looks like a fucking Space Wizard console. I love that. They just don't care. It's really good.
No, for me, it looks like the kind of thing that a kind of tech bro Silicon Valley dude would come up with as a cool design, rather than actually being a cool design.
I like how the story is that the artist originally designed it bigger, and then the tech guys were like, no, it has to be smaller.
It has to like have a swirl in it.
I think it is too large for how big games consoles should be, but it's not by a huge margin. It's just like it's on the too large side, kind of like the original Xbox, which I know none of you know which Xbox I'm referring to now based on the naming conventions. But that thing was also too.
It was a very big
large
chunky thing. Yeah.
For
the
a games
Xbox No
console.
X.
But I don't mind how it looks because it actually looks like a games console, and I, you know what, I'm gonna put it out there. I hate the look of these VCR boxes, and I really dislike the way that the Xbox Series X looks like just a monolith thing. Like,
no, it's a fridge. It's just a fridge.
The thing I like about
needs to look like a GameCube.
I don't so much mind the size of this beast. I guess for me it's the aesthetic thing. Like I don't know
it's absolutely a gamer console.
The two-tone thing just annoys me. Like, if I could have bought a single-tone PlayStation 5, then I would have. The white-black thing is just so fashionable a long time ago.
It dates really quickly. It's like the 3DS. Like, that was like a really cool design when it first came out, but two-tone stuff dates really, really quickly. And that's going to happen with the PlayStation design. So in some ways, yes, the Xbox is a giant black monolith, but a VCR design or whatever, they don't date like as quickly as, you know, two-tone stuff or more expressive art piece like designs.
I will say that at least with the PlayStation 5, the white is kind of the on the outside, so I can put stickers on it. Like I can put all my anime stickers on it, and it'll be an anime console then.
Fucking God.
And then I'll send it to Alan as a Christmas present, and we'll swap PlayStation 5s, Alan. I'll take your one. You'll take my anime one.
So I can throw them in the trash and send you the video.
I think that's cool. That's the way people do that with their like laptops and things, and these are fully replaceable blades on the outside, so go for it.
There's a brand sells them.
Actually, in all seriousness, there's a brand of stickers I highly recommend. It's what's it called? B-Side. It's like this Japanese. I think it's a Japanese brand of stickers, and they're great. They're really expensive. They're like $10 a sticker, but
Jesus.
Yeah, they're expensive stickers, but they're designed for use on laptops and whatever. You know, they're designed to stick and stay on whatever you put them on, and they're really cool designs. Like really, really funky. Go and check them out. They're B-Side, I think it's called. Good stickers. Yeah. I'm going to find some anime girlies and stick them on my PlayStation 5.
It better be Miku.
Yeah, well, Miku would be the big one. Like, she'll be the... I mean, you can almost get a life-size Miku on this PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the best part of PS5?
Can we talk about anything but the anime girls? Okay, Alan.
Yeah, I'm trying to like steer the conversation back on track. The controller.
Oh, it's a good controller.
It's phenomenal. It is so good. It feels both better than the PS4 controller and instantly recognizable.
That's
It is phenomenally good. It is the first thing I know.
It is heavier, which is an issue, I think, for some people.
I
compared to the
think it's a
PlayStation
good
4.
bit of effort, you know?
I like the feel because I like my controllers to be kind of chunky and have a good sense of solid to them. But I do think that it's probably close to twice as heavy as a PlayStation 4 controller, and that's going to be an issue for some people from an accessibility point of view. But I really like the rumble, whatever they call it, the haptics. I wasn't expecting to enjoy that, but the kind of surround experience.
Cool.
The kind of surround experience that comes with those haptics, and you can actually feel like the movement transition from left to right across the controller or whatever into kind of a meticulous level of detail is actually something I really liked.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, I was just going to say one other thing. What I did not like was the triggers. I do not like those triggers.
You don't like the adaptive triggers? I love them. I think
because every time I press them down and there's resistance, I feel like there's something wrong with my controller and my brain goes into a spiral, and then I press down harder on it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to break.
Frame rate issue? Is this your frame rate?
Yeah, this is my frame rate issue. I'm pretty sure I'm going to break quite a few of these controllers. This is going to be like a Joy-Con drift for me because I seriously, every time Demon Souls, for example, every time I pulled back my bowstring, and I felt the resistance in the controller, and that's one of the lighter examples of it. I felt like my controller there was something wrong with it, and I pressed down harder. So I'm putting a lot of pressure on those things. And I just know that if I was to play, what's the one called the Bethesda one that they're creating, the shooter, the blaxploitation one, Deathloop. Apparently, Deathloop has a feature where it will actually the trigger will lock if your gun has has failed or something. So, not that I probably play that, but if I was to play that and my controller triggers started to lock, I would probably mash down on them. And I just know I'm going to break these things. It doesn't feel right to me. But everything else about the controller, I love.
Matt's basically humble bragging about how strong his fingers are.
Yeah, that's it.
Destroy them in his grip.
Yeah, I think that the haptics are by far the most impressive aspect, just because of the way that they do feel surround. Like, I think there's a few examples. I was trying to think of where it was, but I remember feeling it at the time where something was happening in a direction, and you move the character and the camera around, and then the rumbly effect is happening on different parts of the controller, and that's new to me because historically the way that you would program rumble, you would tell it like which rumble you want to use, the big motor, the little motor, the turn on, the attack, decay, release, basically, using all the same systems you would for a sound effect. And that was the kind of limit of it. But now it seems that there's so much of the physical space that you can use on the controller that you really can treat it like a gameplay element. So you could have like a sandstorm coming from one direction, and based on which way your camera's facing or your character's moving, you can have that pulsating across the controller in different angles and dynamically adjusting as you play the game. And that's totally new to me. I think that's fantastic.
Imagine
point that I recognized. Oh, sorry, you go ahead, Matt.
No, I was just going to say, imagine like a horror game, for example, where you could actually start to program kind of directional into the controller, so that something you might not be able to see, you can actually feel through the controller.
I was
or something.
Gonna say this is perfect for Fatal Frame.
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be really neat.
Like if the ghost would like breathe in your ear or something, and you'd actually have there'd be like a small rumble, like the kind of the whisper of the breeze and on the side. It'd be freaky. But that'd be so cool.
I think it kind of works better more as a. Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
I was saying, I think it works best as a subliminal element that works in the background, so it ties into what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and then all three, what you're feeling, are happening together to give you that sense of immersion. But it just adds to things in a way that you won't immediately feel like, oh yeah, I'm so much more immersed because I can feel it in my controller, but you will be, and that's the important thing. Just like every other little bit of feedback we give you, it's building up on that sense of what the game wants you to be emotionally feeling at any given point in time. I do agree about the triggers with both of you in that I think they're really impressive, and also I'll be turning them off almost all the time. Just because, from my point of view, I have some issues with the ligaments and things with my fingers, and the triggers in particular can cause a lot of issue there. And I also wanted to call out Sony officially on this podcast. If you're listening out there, Mr. Sony, what you're doing with the DualShock 4 compatibility is wrong.
Yeah, that's stupid as hell. No, you're right.
It's
stupid as hell.
My sister-in-law has very serious issues with her hands and arthritis issues and other things where it's very painful for her to use most controllers. The DualShock 4 is the only current generation controller that she can use for an extended period of time without pain. And she's tried the DualSense a whole bunch. She loves the DualSense, but she ends up in pain after like half an hour. So the fact that you can remote play a PS5 to a PS4 and play it on a DualShock 4 goes to show you there's nothing in any of the games. They're not letting you make a mechanic that requires the DualSense. There's nothing, okay? They're nonsense about how we want to have everyone have the DualSense. They can have the feeling. Nah, that's bullshit. You let people play on the DualShock 4. Just let them use it.
I think there's also that one's the main one for me, but also there's a commercial interest in there, and I just wonder whether Sony's been a bit nasty on that, because I would imagine that there'd be patented technology in that controller. I would imagine that Sony would not put that kind of innovation in there without making sure that it's got exclusive rights to a lot of it, which makes me wonder, does that mean that third parties are not going to be able to create controllers and things for the PlayStation 5?
I think it's actually licensed from a company that develops haptics especially, but there probably would be patents in relation to how it's used specifically inside the DualSense.
And that's kind of my concern, in the sense that every other console's always had this kind of vibrant range of third-party controllers and things, and that's good for the consumer. It gives them choice, and it's also good for encouraging different ways of playing and stuff. And Sony seems to be doing things to shut people out, or shut other third-party companies out of making peripherals for these consoles, which is a little bit nasty, I think, if my guess is right. Which is, of course, secondary to the human cost, but it is still something worth
I don't believe that will play out like that in the near term. I think that's mostly a case of how new and kind of expensive and complicated the technology is. I believe we'll see third parties able to license the same technology as long as they meet the standards of whatever API Sony use for how it works, so that when you play a game, the Rumble has to offer the same level of functionality. But that's my suspect. I don't think I can't say for sure that you're right or so you're wrong or I'm right. So
I'm going to go back just to talk about the controller itself for a moment. I think the point when I realized it was actually not a complete joke, because it was the same thing when the Switch launched and it had the HG Rumble, and I was a bit like, all right, whatever. Like, it's like you're gonna shake it and find how many ice cubes are in this cup. Like, that's not really that useful. There's a boss fight in the Hell Swamp. It is the second boss fight in the Nightmare Hell Swamp. It's the Bee Lord, and I could feel the bees in my controller. And that was the point where I was like, there are bees in my controller. I do not like that. That's fantastic. So that was basically like the coolest thing that I've seen this console actually do. It is very, very odd to feel like there are bees in your controller that are trying to sting you. I don't think that's something that I want to feel ever again. But it is really, really cool. I genuinely think, as far as launch titles go, Demon's Souls is probably the best one that I've ever seen. Was Bloodborne a launch title?
No, not even close.
No. It's Breath of the Wild. It's Resistance: Fall of Man,
and Resogun, basically.
And Soul Calibur 1 on Dreamcast.
Mario 64 was a launch title. What's going on here? What's happening?
Bad game.
No, we don't need to talk about Mario. We cannot talk about it. I got so mad playing that game, and I can't explain to you how
wrong you are.
I tried so hard. I tried so hard, and I wanted to be good at that game. I got to the sand land. I forget what it's called, the one with the giant pyramid, and I got yeeted by a face that rolls. and I fell down and lost about like half an hour's worth of progress, and I was like, oh, that's the end of my experience.
You just need to get good. Moving on.
Yeah.
Music. Harvard, you can pick. You were very quiet then, but you didn't have a PlayStation 5, so...
Yeah,
just
left out for 20 minutes.
Suck shit, Harvard.
I feel like
You don't know the pain of the bees in your controller. Here's the segment where I don't know what to say. Matt wrote in the in the Slack that we are going to talk about real fan service, i.e. not anime girls in bikinis, but games made for fans of the property.
Yep.
That's the topic. I'm so sorry, Alan.
I do have to do these sections every so often, Alan, just to keep you quiet.
just to make you uncomfortable.
just to make you quiet for a little bit so other people...
All right, the mic is on mute. Let's go.
No, but fan service, I guess what inspired this conversation or topic is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Because, I mean, when we talk about fan service, we always talk, not always, but usually when we reference fan service, it's with regards to anime girls and bikinis and stuff like that. But fan service doesn't actually mean that. Fan service is a bit broader than that topic. And I think a little bit of that is lost. But I think Assassin's Creed Valhalla being a kind of a historical fiction thing and fan service for people who are interested in history is a pretty good game to talk about. I don't know if anybody else has actually played it. Probably not. Alan, I know you probably haven't.
No, I have zero interest in Assassin's Creed anymore just because it still has that stupid future shit that just is insufferably stupid.
That's getting less and less, thank goodness. I think Ubisoft is just going through the motions with it.
I like the future bits. Anyway, I'm playing it, but I've got the same. It's got like Red Dead Redemption 2 issues where it's like slow and boring and just really, really taking a long time to get to the good bits.
But it's good history, right? It's really good history. When I was very much not interested in playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla, because when the video game companies and developers and creatives do Vikings, they generally do one particular type of Viking, which is bad Viking fan service. It's always, bearded dudes, half naked, running around screeching at one another. But this one, what I really liked about it was that the developers clearly did their research with it. They clearly wanted to make sure that what they were depicting was not the kind of the assumed tropes, I guess, of when video game companies do Vikings, but it was more an effort to reflect the kind of the culture and the people of that time in a more authentic sense. So I found that really good. I thought that Assassin's Creed was losing that a little bit with the last couple of titles. And it was really more just a gut reaction, I think. But for me, especially the Greek one, which one was that? Odyssey? Origins?
Yep. Yeah, Odyssey.
Odyssey felt very much like it was playing too heavy into the pop culture understanding, I guess, of Greek.
They went very hard on the mythological elements of like, isn't it cool to have this and this and this and this?
Yeah, and I mean, there's a little bit of that in Valhalla, but not to the same extent, and it's integrated in a more authentic way, and it's not just bearded dudes running around half-naked screeching at one another.
Said, though, is that because Norse mythology is less, I guess, popular? Like, in pop culture, everyone's like, oh, Zeus and Thor and all that sort of stuff, but,
I think that Norse stuff has taken off a lot in recent years. There's a bunch of TV shows related to it now.
Yeah, like Vikings is huge.
There's two or three other TV shows as well. It's not just Vikings. There's some like Lost Kingdoms one or something.
I think the mythology is pretty well known, like the serpent that circles around the world.
I mean, God of War repopularized a lot of it too.
Yeah, God of War has. Well, God of War is the one that I was pointing. I was thinking that would. I don't think God of War is a particularly good job of reflecting Viking. I know that he's meant to be like, well, he is Greek from in his origins, but the way he was presented in the God of War game was exactly the wrong way of depicting, I guess, Viking culture and storytelling. But
yeah, I think that's on purpose. First, not to get on too much of a tangent, but for God of War, I just actually recently played it through for the first time, and I believe that they lean away from history, away from Vikings, and away from that entire culture on purpose to push into the mythology and the absurdity, because that's the core of what makes God of War the god part of it. So
for sure. I definitely think that. And they did exactly the same thing with the kind of the Greek stuff when it was God of War set in Greece. So I don't hold that against them, I guess. But the point is, for me, is more that we have this idea in our head about what Vikings were and what they did. And that doesn't marry up with the history, especially these days, the more research that goes into it. Even things like the rape and pillage, which is, that phrase comes from people's fears back then about what Vikings were going to do when they showed up. But that is that itself has been very questioned. And yes, the Vikings did do their raids and they did take stuff, especially from the people of England of the time. But at the same time, they had peaceful trading relationships with the Arab people, because they were quite. They ventured quite far, and they had peaceful settlements, and the Vikings were, I think they're one of the more misunderstood cultures, I think, is the point. And I was really surprised that Assassin's Creed Valhalla did the right things to correct that, if that makes sense.
So would you say that they've correctly kind of leaned back into that fan service element that people thought was coming when Origins made a big shift, right? And they had the historical modes and the bigger focus on trying to be these large chunks of history that people could learn from. Would you say that they've kind of leaned back around to that from dipping away a bit in Odyssey?
For me, it was probably the most, in terms of the way that they depicted history, it was probably the most interesting and engaging in itself that I've had since the Assassin's Creed 3, funnily enough. And for me, Assassin's Creed 3 was really engaging because I didn't know much about American history, especially revolutionary, the American Revolution. I knew very, very little about it.
The Revolution itself being one of the most biggest fuck shows I've ever seen in history.
Yeah,
it's
but
just disastrously awful.
We didn't learn much about it at all in school.
No, because Australia doesn't know anything, and they don't even teach you your own history, because if they teach you your own history, it's seen as political for some fucking stupid reason. But
as a rule, but to get to the point, I guess, I got really engaged with Assassin's Creed 3 because there were names that were popping up that I vaguely recognised, like Sam Adams pops up, the Tea Party is mentioned, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, I know a little bit about this. This game's depicting this. Let's go and kind of learn a little bit about it, and see just how well Ubisoft has done in researching this stuff up and how authentic it is to the history. And I got really into it, and now I know an awful lot more about the the revolutionary era of America than I thought I would ever have learned otherwise. And I think Valhalla...
The thing for me, Matt, is that, like, just to stop you there for a moment, the thing for that is that these games are really good as an intro and a very, very good introductory point to a greater historical context. I think that if you stop only at the games, like a lot of people tend to do, it is damaging to the point where you just... It's very clear they have set historical objectives in these games to identify some people as, like, heroes. And then you know, if you do any modicum of research, you realize, oh, they're not that good. Oh, they're pretty bad. Oh, they've done some pretty bad things. It's like, it's the exact same issue I have with other historical pop culture things like Hamilton. It's the exact same issue I have with that.
Yeah,
it just doesn't.
I'm not suggesting.
It makes me a little bit uneasy a lot of the time because there is clear attempts to make it more palatable to a modern audience rather than actually depicting it as it is. And I think that the whole way that they present it as, you know, this is a fiction, obviously, but it's based hugely in, you know, history. No, that's not the case. These are fictionalized. They are like Homer characters, essentially. They are
well, the thing is,
into myths of themselves, and I think that's limiting in its own right, and also quite scary in terms of controlling, you know, this narrative of, you know, what history actually should be and who gets to tell that story. So
yeah, okay. So there's an awful lot to unpack there, but to the point, yes, I do agree that these games are not in themselves history textbooks. Like I said, I didn't know much about the revolutionary era of America, and I still don't know enough to form strong, you know, conversations around Assassin's Creed and how it does it. But I do know an awful lot about the French Revolution and Unity when I played Unity.
How was Unity then?
I mean, and I'm getting to that. Unity was fine in the sense that they clearly did their research. They didn't just turn these people into, or they didn't just turn, how can I put this? They did their research, I think is probably the best way to put it. It wasn't just that they pulled up a Wikipedia page and built their game around that, as other games have done. And it wasn't a deliberate effort to...
It's not even a subtle dig at Ghost of Tsushima. It's not even subtle. It's the most dig I've ever heard in my life.
And then it's not like they've gone and done a deliberate effort to rewrite history to take a subtle dig at another game that we've already talked about in this podcast. But they're not history textbooks. The point being, I guess, and what I find engaging about some of these Assassin's Creed games better than others, is that they do encourage me to want to go and learn stuff. And when I was playing Vikings, again, not a part of the world that I am super, super familiar with, I ended up spending hours reading up about King Harold, the first king of Norway, because he was name-dropped in the game. He's kind of depicted at the start of his journey to become the first king of Norway, and he was an interesting character, and he's an interesting historical character. So these games, for me, what makes them really great when they are great, and something that I felt had been lost a little bit on Odyssey and Origin, is that when they are at their best, they do encourage you to want to go and learn stuff. which Vikings
that is a
it
net
brought
positive.
Assassin's Creed back for me in a lot of ways.
I think anything that encourages people to like do more reading and do more learning is a net
To
positive.
learn, yeah. Those things are
I
just
interesting.
Sorry.
Go
Sorry.
ahead.
Oh,
I'll talk then.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I was just going to say, I find it interesting how compelling these aspects of Assassin's Creed are, because to me, you talked about fan service and the lens of this is serving people who've grown an interest in this kind of content. And I think that's pretty much the only value they have to me now as games. This is the only reason I would ever touch an Assassin's Creed game, because like I'm interested in the time period it's covering, the characters, the world, the lore, all of those elements. I've just basically become done with every other aspect of the series, and with not to be mean, but Ubisoft's games in general.
Yes,
you're totally right.
Yeah.
You are totally right. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even slightly interested in Watch Dogs, for example, which is another Ubisoft the open world game. For me, it is only that. In fact, I'm not that interested in open world games at all. I haven't played Red Dead Redemption 2. Haven't really got any interest in that.
Really
shh, Alan. Shh.
It's really good though. It's like one of my favorite stories in games. It's
Once
really
you get
good.
past the tutorial, which is like 5 hours.
It's also an open world. I'm just not interested in open world games as a rule. The only thing that keeps me interested in the Assassin's Creed games is they're basically the Dynasty Warriors of AAA blockbusters, because they have that history element, which is for me what I'm interested in, and they do a pretty good job of finding spots that I don't know that much about. I mean, my favorite Assassin's Creed is
Liberation. Yep,
Liberation.
Yeah, it's the best
and
call it.
I knew nothing whatsoever, like literally zero, about France occupied America, which is what that game
It's so
depicts.
interesting.
And it was fascinating. It was actually the least story-driven of all the Assassin's Creed games, but I learned a lot directly as a result of that game, inspiring me and interesting me in what New Orleans was like back in those days.
The entire idea of having a character who has to live between worlds is just so much more interesting than a big man who stabs. I'm sick of big man who stabs. I want to have other characters. I want to have a man who isn't just like.
Well, now you can have
not
man or woman that stabs, because
Or both.
Or both. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can actually you can be
Which is
fluid.
cool.
You can be fluid in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. You can swap between man and woman.
Also, sorry to bring this back to COD, but I think it's really funny that people are getting like pissy about the fact that you can be non-binary in COD Cold War, but they're not pissed about the fact that you can commit horrible war crimes. It's really good.
No, I like how Cold War became like an SJW game, because
it's the most left-wing game you've ever seen. A game where you do the actions as suggested by Ronald Reagan, a known left-winger. It's so good, dude. It owns. God, I love gaming. This community doesn't suck.
It's a very strange combination of things to have ended up at that point in Call of Duty.
It's so good. I love it. Honestly, like, representation is great. I think that there are more problems with Call of Duty than representation.
Well, I just wonder if it wasn't thrown in there cynically. That's the thing.
No,
Oh, it was absolutely thrown in there to make money. It was thrown in there to get points.
I mean, everything they do is done to make money, but I mean, I'm actually subscribed to the idea that you can't assume people will be good or do good things for the right reasons, and we should encourage people to do good things for selfish reasons. That's one of my worldviews, and
I mean,
I'm okay with Call of Duty adding something that is a net good for people and for the world, and for the fact that, the more normalized this stuff becomes, the easier it is to keep pushing it into bigger and bigger aspects, even though there's other problems in Call of Duty.
I mean, of the one positive that I could take from Call of Duty, and literally the one positive, was that it had the non-binary option, which is great. I mean, I think that it's absolutely great that it's in there. It should be in there. It should be in every game, and that's a good thing. But
plus, it would have pissed off a lot of the type of people that potentially Call of Duty very much appeals to. So that's a bonus.
I mean, that makes me want to buy the game even more, is knowing that some dude out there was
Oh
getting the
no, it
rage
wasn't
button.
some dude. It was an awful lot of dudes. You can check Twitter, Alan. There was a lot of dudes that got very upset about this, which is funny.
Fun.
It is
I just want to
objectively
like
funny.
be able to go outside and enjoy life. I don't want to rage about someone having the option to play as a different character. I just have better things to do. These people need to grow up, is what I'm trying to say. Let people play games how they want to play. Let people be who they fucking want to be. I don't give a shit. Anyway, shall we end the section there?
I want to briefly talk,
Oh, yes.
briefly on fan service stuff.
Jump in.
I believe there's a couple more examples of this that are really interesting, but I do think that this trend with the historical stuff and fan service and appealing to people who might otherwise not even care for this type of game probably started for me with the Total War franchise.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
That's
Total War
a
and
series.
Civ.
Yeah, Total War, Civilization as well. I mean, I grew up on Civilization. I played it for the gameplay of Civ largely. There's an aspect to it where it appeals to you from the historical side, but because you're making your own, a lot of the time it does feel like it leans heavily on its own merits.
It was a big time educational thing for me as well. Civilization, the little videos of Civ 2. I don't know if you were playing Civ back then, but
I was a fetus.
Not you, Alan. I know you were because you're a young boy. But no, Civilization 2 had little videos that you unlocked when you completed to build the world wonders, and those little videos did a really good job of inspiring me to learn about hanging gardens. And
just the descriptions of them too, right? When you're choosing which thing to research, and it would say you could unlock the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, and then you would read about like what they were, and then why that would give you a specific bonus in the game that you would relate to a mechanic, and like that was really fascinating. This idea, as a kid, there was definitely that element. Because I played it as a child as well, where you're like, oh, okay, as a society, we benefit from building these works that are greater than ourselves and sharing in like the glory of them, and understanding that by coming together and achieving something of significance, you can improve your civilization, your society, which was really neat.
It's still, and that series still gets me because how they're doing every 2 months they're dropping a new civilization and stuff into Civ 6. So a couple of months ago they dropped Gran Colombia and Simon Bolivia, which I again did not know much about because we learned nothing about learn nothing about South American history in Australia whatsoever at school. And as a result, I've gone and bought a whole bunch of books about this guy. I've actually read 2 now and counting. And it's fascinating. So yeah, Civilization has always been inspiring to me as history fan service, and I think that's a great example. Total War has always kind of played in areas that I've already been familiar with, like for example, Three Kingdoms. China is the recent one. I already know plenty about that.
A lot of people wouldn't know anything about that.
A lot of people don't, for sure. But it hasn't had that same impact on me. I love it because I already love those periods of history, and whether it's Rome or whatever, Shogun, I really enjoy them for that reason. But
that is fan service in its own sense, isn't it?
It is, for sure.
You're a fan of those periods, and so they're providing you with just like more and more and more for you to immerse yourself in that area that you already love.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. Definitely agree. I think that they're amazing for that as well, and I think those ones are particularly, I guess, engaging because they let you have that kind of trooper level view of the action as well. So you can, when you control the individual battles or whatever, you can really get, kind of immersed in what's going on.
In general, I've found it interesting how the games industry has come and gone from focusing on this particular type of fan service that you're talking about. The other big ones for me across my era in gaming was when the Need for Speed games, they started out as Need for Speed Road and Track, the very first one, and it was partnered with the Road and Track magazine that was all about gearheads and carheads, right? Trying to say, this is a fan service game for fans of cars. If you're fans of cars, come and play this game. Yeah, there's a racing game underneath, but we also have like this section where you can look at the specs for the cars and have a readout about how great they are, and really, really get a little bit of an obsession going over that. And that, to me, even as someone who didn't care about cars, would help to get me into it. And other people who were into cars could then immerse themselves in it and enjoy it. But
I mean, all the sports games are effectively, all licensed sports games are effectively fan service because you can play as your favorite footballer or
Yeah.
cricketer or tennis player or handballer, do not play Handball 21.
Yeah, I don't know why you bought that. Why do you buy that every year?
Even if you absolutely love handball, do not play Handball 21. They've actually managed to take a 0 out of 5 game and take it backwards somehow. I am so aggressively annoyed at Handball 21.
What did you actually expect?
I expected them to get better over time.
You're asking too much.
Off a 0 base, you wouldn't think you could go into negatives, but somehow they have. So as a fan of handball, this is bad fan service.
Can you please give it your first negative review? Can you do that?
I'll break Metacritic because they probably don't have like a negative.
Oh yeah, it's just like a negative 7.5 out of 10. It was like enough for me to throw up 4 times in a row. Pretty big.
But I have appreciated these series that are trying to both serve the fans, like be fan service, the way that Assassin's Creed, that Civilization's being fan service, while also using that as an opportunity to create evangelists, to bring other people in and teach them about why these fandoms, what these people are fandoms of, why these areas are exciting and interesting. You know, like I would never have cared about cars at all without the original Need for Speed, and as it is, I don't really care about cars, but care about them a little bit because of that game, and I would never
more
have cared,
than you would have. Yeah,
exactly, and I would never have cared so much about some of the things that have happened in ancient history were it not for Civilization. And you know, you grow and you become part of these fandoms then, and then you consume more of the games that are fan service for that, which ultimately that's what these game developers kind of want you to be, right? Buying their games.
Yeah.
You know, not that everything comes back to
line of
capitalism, but yeah.
The whole Dawn of War series basically got me into Warhammer when I was like 12, because Dawn of War was amazing and it was the best strategy game to play at the time. Like if you had a computer that could run it, you had Dawn of War. And even now, with Vermintide, I had a slight little like titch in the back of my head while playing Vermintide, like, oh, I could start painting miniatures again. I could start doing that. I could get into crack cocaine. I could do that. That's it's the same thing, and even with Mechanicus as well, the exact same thing happened to me there. Like, those games are very, very good at making me interested in an environment that I know is a bigger media property. And honestly, with that, we're gonna have to move on to our next section because I know that last section is gonna be a big one. So,
all right,
we're gonna play some music. I'm gonna play some music from Mechanicus.
And welcome back. Okay, so we do have a guest on the podcast. We've done an awful lot of talking. But now we're going to do the interviewing, because you've worked on a lot of remakes, and we were talking earlier in the podcast about remakes and remasters and stuff. What was some of the remakes? The Castle of Illusion, Mickey Mouse?
Yeah, so...
that was the Sega Australia one, was it?
Yeah, I worked at Sega Australia for over 5 years. And while I was there, we did a bunch of work on remakes. About 6 or 7 of which, several of which actually got to full gameplay versions, never existed or got released. Very recently, Sega did decide to release one of the prototypes of those.
I know that was a sore point for you, so we'll avoid talking about that one.
Yeah, I got pissed at that.
We'll avoid talking about that one because that's a bit nasty on you. But tell us, Mickey Mouse, for example. I mean, I guess the burning question I have is when you are working on another person's game, or another creative team's game, what goes through your mind in terms of how you can go about doing what you need to do to make it a remake, a remaster, however, you making the changes you need to make while still kind of respecting the original work's vision?
So I guess the first thing is to really define in your own head whether or not you believe this to be a remake or a remaster. Because a remake is you making a game based on a game, and a remaster is you taking that game and trying to make it as amazing as it could have been if they made that exact same game exactly as it is, but today. And that's a key point of difference for me when people talk about remakes and remasters. So in this case, it was a remake when we did the Castle of Illusion system. The pitch was always a remake. It was never a remaster. And so initially I was thinking about like what made the original game compelling for the people who loved it at the time and try to work backwards from there. And I think that's the approach that I tend to always take with games. I'm very much a student of history. My dad was a history teacher, and I've just grown up playing Civilization, which we were just talking about before, and all these different games. And I've always appreciated the fact that people weren't stupid back in the day. We have this assumption a lot of the time that things were just easier or simpler or stupider back in the past. You go, oh, people liked that game because that was all they had. But I actually don't believe that. I think that despite the limitations of the game that they made back in the 90s with Castle of Illusion, the people who made it were probably working as hard or harder than I've ever worked on anything, and incredibly intelligent, and made a lot of decisions that were very purposeful and made an experience that was quite magnificent. It is beloved across generations for a reason. It's more beloved than almost anything I've made will be beloved across generations. People will be remembering Castle of Illusion long after they remembered anything that I made at Sega. So yeah, I try very hard to look back at why they made the decisions they did, and then why people actually connected with that the way that they did. Sorry if that doesn't a roundabout answer your question as a starting point.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the kind of question I had in mind. I guess the follow-on to that is, this is probably more to do with, I guess, remasters than remakes, and we were talking about this a little bit with regards to Demon Souls earlier. Do you think it's important to maintain the stuff that is not good, but gives the game some kind of character? Do you think that's an important element to keep?
If you're remastering something, the jank is part of the experience, and there will be people who loved it, and I don't think that if it's not obviously a game-breaking bug, it's your responsibility to capture the soul of that experience, including the jank. And because jank is different to different people.
I mean, you're obviously aware of the fact that the coin glitch is still in Demon Souls.
Yeah,
the exact same coin glitch is still there. You can use it again, and you can get infinite luck, and it's still in the game, even though it's a remake.
The best remasters are quite often the ones where they intentionally recreate beloved bugs and things like that, because they're that shows, one, that they are aware of what the original game was, and two, that they're aware of what the community that supported those games, that loves those games, deemed important. And that's really crucial to show that you're not just looking at it through your own lens, because a remaster, these properties are old. You're not the original creator. The communities that still enjoy them are just as much a part of the process as you who's remaking it, in my opinion. It's basically a communal effort to begin with. Like, if it was the original developers doing the remaster, sure, they can do whatever they want. But if you're not the original developer, you're basically the same as those people who've been playing it for 20 years, and they have as much right to tell you what was important in that game as you do.
And when you are, I guess, remaking a game, Do you think it's harder in the sense that you do still need to preserve something that of the original that people love, but like you say, you've got the creative freedom and liberties to then go out and make the changes that you think are also necessary. Do you think it's harder to find that balance than it is when you are just setting out to kind of remaster something?
It's definitely harder, but it's also filled with potential. I love remasters. Some of the remasters that are done really well are some of my favorite things to have played in history. Like the Shadow of the Colossus remaster version, not the remake, was actually quite fantastic for me because it cleaned up a lot of the technical issues that may have happened. You know, but that was done very elegantly, and it was still the original experience. In a lot of ways, I prefer the Shadow of the Colossus remaster over the remake. But with a remake, even though it's harder, because you have to make a lot of decisions. With the remaster, you can say that these decisions are made for me, and this is my approach, and this is the way I have to do it. With the remake, you end up having to actually make a lot of creative decisions. But the potential is higher with a remake. And I think, if you look at Final Fantasy VII Remake, that's just incredible, right? Like that.
Yeah, that thing absolutely blew my mind, because they actually not only remade it, they kind of reversed everything.
It's
They just flipped every expectation you had of what Final Fantasy VII is or was on its head, while still remaining Final Fantasy VII. It's still quite clearly Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, it's impressive that they had the balls to do that, in all honesty. Like, one of the most beloved games of all time.
And they broke it down completely. Like they
did it.
Yeah. And that's the power of a remake, is that you get to make these decisions, and they can end up being a lot worse than a remaster ever could have been. There was a total potential for Final Fantasy VII Remake to destroy something that I loved. But instead, what they did was build something new that exists entirely separate to the original game that I can still love, and yet it's still Final Fantasy VII and still freaking amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that Final Fantasy VII, for me, the moment I realized that this game is this remake is something quite spectacular, was going into it. I was really concerned that so much of what they would be doing would be to set up the game so that should I do spoilers? I guess it's an old enough game, the original, so that a certain character doesn't die in the remake, because that would no longer be kind of commercially palatable.
Barrett doesn't die, everyone.
Yeah. I was genuinely concerned about that. The fact that the Final Fantasy VII Remake got me to a point that if they do that and she doesn't die, then I'm okay with that, because that now makes sense within this new fiction that they've built, and the fact that they've used this remake as a way of challenging what the original did. I don't know. It's just amazing that they've managed to get me to the point where I would be comfortable with them doing basically anything that they're doing with that game, with the next one.
And that's
whereas going in, I was concerned that they were just going to kind of ruin it to try and make it, modern.
Yeah, no, I totally agree that they pulled off a minor miracle there, and they went harder than... I think that's the hardest anyone's ever gone in a remake. If I look at it somewhat trying to be objective and just measure the sheer number of changes, because this is all very subjective, but there's some element where you can measure just how drastically altered something is from its original creation, and be like, this was someone who went, how can we do as much as we possibly can? And now...
I mean... It is absolutely classic Nomura, though. It's to take a story that's like relatively simple and just make it batshit insane. I love it because it's just Kingdom Hearts. They turned Final Fantasy VII into Kingdom Hearts, and I'm here for it. Personally.
Well, let's hope it works out a little bit better for them than the 20 years I was waiting on that one.
Oh god! I don't want to
have to. God. I really don't want to have to wait for the PlayStation 6 or 7 for the next Final Fantasy VII chapter.
Are you saying you'll be playing the Final Fantasy VII spin-off game on the PSP 7 that you have to play because it takes place within the third game and the seventh game?
Yeah,
but it introduces a character who will then be in the sequel that's on the.
But no, but it's
they're still
actually the
doing
same
that.
character, but it's also half of it's not Cloud, it's half of Cloud, but it's also not Zack. It's someone else.
Look,
You
know
don't
there's-
understand.
I
Very
know they're
important
still
that you know
doing
the
that,
difference between
like-
Cloud, Zack, and Clack.
Because they're actually still doing that because with the Kingdom Hearts,
Still
because that
fucking
melody of memory game,
They have learnt nothing.
I'm
There is
playing
critical-
it and I love it.
there-
I'm so
there are
attacked
critical-
right now.
there are critical plot points for the next, for the future of Kingdom Hearts in this stupid rhythm game. So you have to play the rhythm game if you want to continue the plot of Kingdom Hearts.
Why?
No, can I ask you
Why?
actually? You raised up an interesting point before. When you're thinking about remakes or remasters, do you tend to play them alongside the original game, or do you just kind of remember what the original game was like when you experience it?
Oh, I think that's generally a personal thing. I mean, if I could tell you some horror stories about people I worked with who were in charge of some of these projects, who did the absolute bare minimum of things, like say playing a port on their mobile phone on the bus for 5 minutes on the way to work before deciding how like your game should play.
That literally stresses me out so much. Oh my god.
Yeah, so that happened. But for me personally, I like to go all out. So I'll play the original. I'll replay it like 3 or 4 times. I'll keep it on an emulator on my desktop to just boot it up and play when I'm working on a segment of the game or thinking about a mechanic or thinking about like a character design or the integration of something. Because to me, the original is the gospel. It's the Bible that you build everything on. Be it a remake or a remaster, you should be absolutely looking at the original game. And then on top of that, I would always have like a full video playthrough that I can load up on the side, and my own memories, and any articles I can find related to it. I remember when I was working on the Sega Reborn stuff, I would scour the internet for every interview with like the original developers of Golden Axe, or James Milkey did a bunch of interviews with Yu Suzuki, which were fantastic for talking about like his classic arcade games and how he approached designing them, and I recreated some of the mechanics of that in the various prototypes and things, which are really interesting. So I believe firmly that that you have to have almost an encyclopedic knowledge and intrinsic understanding of these original games before you can say that you understand them enough to go, I'm going to be confidently remaking or remastering this.
That's interesting because I think all of us here at DDNet, we do a lot of reviews, and recently there's been a lot of remakes and remasters. I've done lots of reviews where I've just not played the original and I've looked at the remaster for whatever value it had. There was one exception to that, though. This year when I reviewed Mafia Definitive Edition, I was very deliberate in watching the Let's Play. I know it's not playing the same game, but watching the Let's Play as I was doing the missions and appreciating the little changes that you make and going, this had to have been deliberate. What is the value of making this change? And I think that helped me appreciate what they did with the remaster or the remake of that game much more, because they took a plot that was very 2002 in its inconsistent tone, random need to crack jokes every now and then, and found out what people liked about it and kept that, and found out what could be removed to make it more modern and remove that.
So to me, the split there, though, is often for what you're saying you traditionally do, where you quite often will approach something kind of blind and just look at it on the value of its own merits. You're serving your readership, right? Like if you think about who I'm serving and who you're serving in different roles, and this tends to be how I like to break things down, is very user facing, thinking about like who I'm doing the work for. The majority of your readers probably, in a lot of these cases, are people who either didn't play the original but have heard about it and are excited about it, especially with something like Demon's Souls, right? Like I own Demon's Souls, but not that many people actually own Demon's Souls. I'm guessing that most of the people who are playing it on PS5 never had access to it on the PS3. So in a lot of ways, you're serving your readers actually better with some of these more niche remakes and remasters by going in blind and trying to assess something on the merits of what it is, because that'll be closer to the experience they're actually going to have. But when you do go to the extra effort and do that comparison and do that breakdown of like what is the value of the change that they've made here, you're very specifically creating like a different type of review and a different type of critique for people. And it depends on who you're trying to serve there, but I think that's the split for me. I don't think one is necessarily superior to the other in that sense.
I can just say I'm serving myself. Like whatever review I want to write, I'm going to write that.
Yeah.
I guess there is also the question. I mean, I understand. I mean, looking at the commercials, I guess, of these kinds of games, it makes sense to go back to the backlog or to the library of the publisher or whatever and pull out some classics that are beloved, because firstly it's got the brand recognition, so you can therefore find some audience immediately, and then also a lot of the kind of groundwork's already been done. Even if it is a full remake that you're going into, there's still a lot of creative work that's already there to reference off. So the question I have is whether remakes or remasters are always a good idea, and if they are, which one is the right way to go? And the reason I'm going on this thought tangent is I'm thinking back to the Shenmue HD remasters that were released. When was that? 2 years ago now?
Yeah.
And I get why they did that, because they wanted to get a new generation of people familiar with Shenmue before the third one came out. But at the same time, all the qualities that made people love Shenmue and its sequel, when you play the HD remaster, those qualities are gone. Like, they're just not there. That game is one of those games that aged poorly, and I don't like to say the games aged poorly, but those two did.
They are
because
aggressively 1999.
Because I mean, Shenmue, the whole point, the whole power of that game was the fact that it was this brilliantly kind of realistic, powerfully kind of the visual engine was amazing. This was a very kind of decadently expensive game that was released on the Dreamcast as a kind of prestige title. That all of those qualities are gone because games have moved on so far since. So that was probably one example I would think of a remaster that, if there was going to be any value to doing it at all, it would have been better to do as a remake. And I say that as somebody who really enjoys Shenmue and enjoyed playing around with the remaster anyway. But yeah, I wonder if there are, well, there are plenty of examples, I guess, of remasters.
Have you played Silent Hill Collection?
Yeah, remasters and or remakes.
Ooh.
But those ones are bad because technical issues. In terms of the actual remake, I'm talking about the actual concept of doing a remake or remaster. There are some games that I just don't think should be touched, and or if they are going to be touched, they need to be done the other way.
I actually agree with you in the sense that there are some games where doing a remake makes more sense, just because the purpose of it, like here you're talking about expanding an audience, right? And if you're talking about expanding an audience and you're remastering a game that is a product of its time, that's just not going to work. Like that basically you're choosing the wrong tool for the job. And I think that's kind of the point you're getting at, is that they should be trying to match up, like whether they're doing a remake or a full-on remaster, with whether or not they think it's going to be effective at what it's trying to do. Sometimes, though, a remaster is just there to preserve something that's otherwise really locked into like an ancient piece of hardware, or it's, in some way just kind of lost in time, or was really niche and really rare. Like, I don't know if it would actually have an ability to find a new audience now, but I'd go to wherever the three of you, four of you, wait, how many people are in this call? There's not too many people talking, actually.
We're all just peppering you with questions.
I'd go to wherever it is that you all live and, just murder you all if it meant that they would remaster Shining Force 3, all three parts in English. But I don't think it would find a new audience at all, so... Yeah,
well, I doubt you want to go to Tamworth, so...
Oh, I'll do it. Don't even question.
No, the one that I think is the biggest shame is the Echo Knight series, because I'm so interested in playing those three games, but there is just literally no way that I will ever be able to play them. For those of you who don't know what Echo Knight is, it is a horror adventure series by FromSoft, and you solve ghost problems, as is the best way I can explain it, and it's very, very cool and neat looking. And the third one is set in space, and it's cool looking. Like, I want to play that series. I love PS1 horror, so like that's my thing, is I want to see more of that. I want to see more of Nightmare Creatures. I don't know if anyone
I'm
knows
actually-
that series.
It's funny you mentioned that. I'm actually replaying that through on my kind of emulator handheld. I'm replaying
It's.
the second.
I remember playing that game. It's really good.
Yeah, it's a thing.
It's like prototype Bloodborne.
It's interesting.
It is a video game.
Yeah,
Although I
to your
definitely
point,
agree with what you're saying.
I think there is definitely value in preserving a lot of these games that are otherwise lost. For example, if they were to just package up Xenogears 1 and 2, which are PlayStation 1.
Oh,
you know.
dude, why haven't they done that? That
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Parasite Eve,
I
where
mean,
are they?
Yeah,
You
where's
play-
Parasite Eve? What?
You play
Forget the
Xeno-
third birthday. That didn't happen.
you play Xenogear 1 and 2, and they're definitely old games. They definitely feel old. They're early era kind of PlayStation 1. Don't know if they're early era PlayStation 1, but they're early era 3D kind of JRPGs, and that comes with all the jank that's involved. But they are very difficult to find and or play now. And I think that just throwing them onto a console with a HD sheen, like they did with Final Fantasy VIII,
Or Grandia recently, right?
would be exactly. These would be good ideas to preserve them, because otherwise they're lost. I mean, Final Fantasy VIII. Now I mentioned it. That's the perfect example. That game was all but lost. They kept remaking
Because they
or
lost
re-releasing.
the source code.
Yeah, they
We
lost
all
the
thought
source
they
code.
lost it, yeah, and then they were just like, "Nope, here, have it."
No.
What
They
happened?
did lost. They had lost it, but .emu, which is emu. I always say emu, but that's a
I mean,
bird.
there's emulation, but we're all Australians. We're thinking about the bird, yeah.
yeah. The company, they actually reverse engineered it, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Off the PC version, so it's not the perfect.
God, they're legends.
It's not the perfect, but it's the only way that game was ever going to be saved, and they managed to save it. So that's a really good example of for me a game that's just basic HD remaster of a very old game, but definitely worth doing.
I
Well,
do
I mean-
think, to your point, though, that you're absolutely right, that when you look at a game and you say that this game won't work for the audience that exists for games now, that's when you really should be thinking about, like, is there actually any value in trying to preserve this? Does it need that right now? Or is the alternative really should be to remake this game? Because
I mean, the other thing is Shamu's probably a rare example because it is the qualities of that game were very specific, and they had not so much to do with the actual quality of the game as such what it did in terms of being that big, luxurious, big budget kind of soap opera thing. So
Shenmue would be such a hard game for me to remake if I was to think about it. And
it
even
would
if you
also
look
be it would also be essential. You'd need to bring kind of AAA budget into Shenmue to keep what wowed people about the original game still wowed.
See, you're saying that we shouldn't remaster Odama.
probably
What is
not.
that?
Oh, it's so niche. It was a pinball game where you controlled a ball with your
Oh,
voice.
yes. That's the GameCube thing, isn't it?
That's the GameCube cursed
Yeah,
game.
Yeah, I always wanted to buy it, but I feel like with every other GameCube game, I feel like if I pick it up, it's going to be like a huge letdown if I actually end up finding the actual copy.
It's because it's using the GameCube mic. What do you expect?
They should put it on
Wouldn't that-
PS5 and you can use the controller mic.
Yeah, you can just
It wouldn't
scream
even be
into
that hard.
your controller with the triggers pressing
No,
themselves
the game-
down while you
The
scream.
GameCube game they need to preserve is Lost Kingdoms. Lost Kingdoms was
That's too niche for me.
Lost Kingdoms was a From Software game where
Yes.
you collected a deck of cards and used those cards to summon monsters that then went and did all the fighting for you, and it was real time. And but Bait and Katos is a good example of another one, but not Lost Kingdoms.
So
about
it
Lost
needs a
Odyssey?
collection of both 1 and 2
What was-
re-released, and it needs a sequel.
What was the one the Capcom did? How Capcom did, like they were going to do 5. No, it was the one that everybody hated except for a very small audience who
Dead
absolutely
Space
loved
7?
it.
Piano 3.
Dragon.
Piano 3, that's the one. That's the
Are
one
you
they
just
should.
making games up now?
No, Piano 3. That game,
Piano
was,
3 is real. It's got a cool cover. It's like a cool mecha cover, from what I remember.
and it was very minimalist in terms of the art style. Like
Yeah.
in game, it was all lots of white. It was very white dominated, and I think it put a lot of people off because it was so different. But there is definitely a small audience for that. That would be a game that I would like to see.
I think you'd
don't
sell
know,
that
this-
game
that
to
remake?
there's probably like 50,000 people out there who'd buy that just to watch the HD version of her idol animation, I guess. That's what people were into.
That's true, and those 50,000 people would be me.
Plus, I guess that
it's like-
aesthetic's been
all those
used in. I was
Just
gonna say
sitting in
the
like an
aesthet-
action room of the Pentagon with like 50,000 copies of Piano 360, playing the same animation on repeat for 4 hours.
I was gonna say the aesthetic's been used in stuff like Mirror's Edge and stuff like that anyway now, so it's not going to be a huge change.
Well, that's, I guess, one other point is, do some of these remakes actually find a new audience? Do some games actually get rediscovered and reevaluated and
Demon's
kind of
Souls.
re-worshipped as a result of
Demon's
this?
Souls.
Well, I mean, Demon's Souls always had respect. It just didn't sell many. The one I'm thinking about is Nier.
That'll sell well because it's made by actual developers now, rather
I don't
than,
care.
like,
I'm not talking about the sales. I mean, I'm talking more about the reception it'll get, because the original Nier got absolutely slaughtered in the media. I think
It's because they didn't play beyond the first ending, which is a fault of the media in general.
That's the thing. I think it was such a different one. It took the commercial success of Nier Automata and also the involvement of Platinum Games for them to realize what Yoko Taro's vision was. And I really think
it's
that
extremely cursed shit. We like it.
And I really think that now Nier is definitely going to be reevaluated. And from that footage that we saw of it,
it looks really good.
Yeah, it does look
really, really good.
I'm still not sure if it's a true remake or more a remaster. Because
part of me hopes that he just like fucks with something in the game just to,
he will.
Oh, he will.
He's the man who made a mechanic where you delete your save file to win the game. Like, I love that. I love this guy. He's a legend. Also, he sold his shirt by rolling around on the floor screaming Nier Automata t-shirt, which is
my favorite Nier Automata. My favorite Nier Automata story is when you play the game for the first time. There's like a name entry screen or something for 2B, and you go through. You put I can't remember exactly what you do, but it's like a setup screen of sorts. What I didn't realize is that the game actually records that in terms of it does an exact recording of it and then replays it back when you go through the next character arc. And when I played Nier Automata the first time, I had to go out or something for a couple of hours. So I just left it on on that screen because the action was paused when that happened, and went and did my thing. And then when I played through the next character arc, this
you had to wait for like 3 hours.
I had to wait for like 3 hours for it to play through before I could continue on with the game. That was a very Yoko Taro moment. Really, I love that.
That's great. Yeah. That's good banter.
So good.
No, I love that he has the balls to do that. And honestly, I think he will continue to do that shit as long as he lives, and I respect him beyond belief for doing it. That dude does not give a single fuck, and he's so cool.
I actually just love this trend of, like, I wouldn't say FromSoft stuff traditionally was AAA, and I wouldn't say that Nier Automata is quite AAA, but I do love this trend of having a few more auteur-style games being made with high production values.
Yeah, just like weirdo games. I love it. I fucking love weirdo games.
I don't know if I'd call them weirdo. I just like the fact that someone can unilaterally make a decision about what's important to them and say the game is going to adhere to these things that are important to me. Because normally when if you're making a game with $100 million budget, right, you might be the lead, the creative director, but there'll be like 7 other people with a title almost similar to yours and 5 bosses of yours who are looking at this thing and 20 people in market, and just like the number of people who it impacts every tiny decision, it can become very difficult to make an absurd decision like that and say that this is of value to the game experience without someone saying, but this is going to hurt X person and Y person in this particular segment, and I think that there's something to be said about how nice it is to see these large-scale, high-production value auteur experiences.
Well, it's kind of the Hollywood it's the kind of the filmmaking system all over again, isn't it? I mean, you look at the big blockbusters from Hollywood, and they're generally kind of made by committee these days. And you look at the credits, and there's like 10,000 people who have worked on a Marvel film, and a lot of them have creative input. And
quite often look at the writers' lists on IMDb to decide whether or not a movie is going to be compelling or not.
And I mean, I don't actually. Those things are good fun and entertaining, and they're of course carefully designed to be that way. And what happens, I think, is when you get a product, or an entertainment product made by committee, is that it does tend to be quite entertaining because all the decision making is tuned towards that. That's all good, but then you get to the foreign films or the independent films, and something like The Lighthouse, for example, is a very clear product, well, not product, I don't want to call it. It's a very clear kind of artistic vision by a single person that was able to. That is a
nerd film. And
The Lighthouse is brilliant. I love that. I think it's a masterpiece. I can't remember his name now, but he's very clear. It's the same director as The Witch and
The Green Goblin.
He's a brilliant director, and he was working with two very talented actors, and it was a really creative work. I think that the games industry has a greater tradition of having games made by committee, I guess. And I don't have an issue with that. I think that a lot of good quality stuff happens as a result, but it is nice to have games made by single directors as well. And that, like you say, they've finally got some budget. They're not just, small little games made by 5 or 10 people.
Devil May Cry was saved by Itsuno. I trust him with everything from now on. So it's that same thing.
It's a similar thing with Kojima's stuff. I know this is a contentious subject, but I've known a few people. I've known a few people who've worked on Kojima's games actually, and they've universally the trend that whenever I've asked them about it is they've said, yes, when you're working on those games, Kojima will ask you to change the most absurd individual things. He's obsessed with the detail of his games, and the budgets on these games have been enormous. They've been absurd. But yeah, just like there's something that's interesting about that, and sometimes it's for the worse. I'm gonna be honest.
Keep in mind, this is the guy who had a character who fucked his stepmom and made his dad commit suicide. This is the same guy.
But the fact that you can have that is largely because one person does it. But it's not just that. Like, you look at the big beats. That's usually what we attribute to, this auteur theory stuff, is the big beats of something, when it's Yoko Taro doing the ending of Nier Automata. And that is something that the big game directors can do. But big stuff like that can also happen in a more committee-driven thing. It's the singular cohesiveness of something that's designed by one person that I like. The way that everything in the game is tending to push towards whatever it is that they think is important about the experience. And I'll remember the various documentaries about MGS4, which isn't my favorite MGS game, but there is footage of Kojima walking around and asking them to change the height of stairs and positions of boxes and things just to mess with what he thought was important about the flow of a singular little tiny space somewhere. And I always thought that was interesting that that we still had this element.
I wonder if that's I would imagine that in most cases those kind of auteur style directors would be the ones that are difficult to work with. I can't imagine it would be overly entertaining for anybody else but Kojima to be working on a Kojima game.
Yes.
And it's the same. I've heard much the same about Goichi Suda, who's another, I guess, example of an auteur that works in this industry. His games are very distinctly Goichi Suda games, and I think everybody that works with Goichi Suda knows that they're making a Goichi Suda game, and he is going to tell them what to do. And I think that it's those games are difficult for everybody else to work on, but it's the only way that those things can be produced. And there's a great example in cinema. Of course, Stanley Kubrick is infamous for being an absolute asshole to work with, really, because he is so specific about what he wants out of his work. But if he wasn't that specific, his work would not be as clearly defined as his. So yeah, that's an interesting one. I mean, I think, me personally, if I was working in game development, I would want to work with a Kojima, just because the creative process, getting an insight into the creative process of a person like that would be fascinating.
Well, it's a tricky one, right? Because if you're working with someone like that, you do lose more of your own ability to put yourself in the game. You're there essentially to build somebody else's thing entirely. Whereas games are in this kind of space are usually a lot more collaborative. I would argue.
Yeah, there needs to be that culture. I'll start to interrupt.
Yeah, no, I just think that there's a difference, and I don't necessarily think one is far superior to the other. I appreciate that we have both. I like that we have both. And I before you get to what you were talking about with the culture, I was going to loop back around to remakes by saying it's funny because Kojima has been remaking essentially his own game for the entire Metal Gear Solid series.
Yes. I mean, it's true. It is the same game every time, and it's great, and I love it, and I wish he'd remake Metal Gear Solid 3 every time. Please make Metal Gear Solid 3. It's really good.
But I mean, he's like literally remaking the story. And half the games are about the plot being, did you realize this was a remake of the story of that game? Haha.
All along, Skullface was actually Vulcan.
No, that's not fair. It takes a 40-minute cutscene to say that.
Yeah, you have to like sit in the car with a man with a skull for a face while a song plays in the background because it's Metal Gear Solid 3 again.
I know. I just find that endlessly fascinating to look at. Like the fact that Metal Gear Solid 2 is essentially trying to say, what if we just remade Metal Gear Solid 1, but then pretended we didn't, and then flipped it on you at the end by saying, we totally did.
That is a game that like just went over my head in many, many different ways as a child. Like I just did not understand anything. When I got to the end, I was like just afraid.
I still
have
to come back because I feel like in its time it didn't get appreciated for that exact reason.
I'm a good example of that. I was not a fan of Kojima, as you all know. I mean, Alan especially knows.
You did not like anything about Death Stranding.
I did not. Until I started to play it, and now I'm Kojima's biggest fan. So I haven't played Metal Gear Solid since Death Stranding. I wonder if I would actually enjoy them now, because I really didn't enjoy them the first time I played. I thought they were pretentious wank. But the thing was, now that I played Death Stranding, which is pretentious wank, but it's pretentious wank that
one.
But it's
the one that literally has a man called Sam Porter Bridges who builds bridges between society.
Alan, I think
the one I like.
I think that's the point. I think he's managed to bust through the kind of pretentious barrier to the point that I just, he's now on the other side, and I'm all about it. Once it gets to that kind of level of wank, I'm all for it. So.
Yeah, Death Stranding's like the best pretentious wank, and it's like the pinnacle of video games right now, and everyone needs to just reach up to that point.
Death Stranding's
There's
a
man
budget
called
game
Die Hardman.
I've ever seen. Can you, just stop for a second and think, if anybody except for Kojima and his people who make incredibly beautiful games had made this game, we'd all be standing here talking about that really weird indie game about walking while you carry shit.
With Die Hardman in the background who dies constantly for no reason.
But I think that it comes to Deadly Premonition had that exact effect. Everyone was like, this is the stupid game with trees. And then people started to get used to Swery's work. And then they realize what it is. And then when they re-release it, I think it gets received in a much better and a much more different way.
Yeah. Deadly Premonition's a really good example. And
that game got a big cult following in 2000 and maybe 13.
Well, it's weird. It had that reputation for being both simultaneously absolutely shit and absolutely brilliant.
It is pretty shit.
If ever there was a series of games, let's just sit and talk about remasters for a second. If ever there was a series of games that absolutely should probably just be remastered by an external company that want to keep them exactly as they are, but then fix all
no.
Okay. Large amount of technical flaws from the systems that they were designed to run on and other things. Those games.
No. You got this one wrong.
It needs to run like shit. It needs to look like absolute trash.
This is Artur theory through and through. Those games are deliberately bad. That is 100% truth. Those games are deliberately terrible. And do you know how I know this? Because Swery actually makes high-quality games as well, right? So in between Deadly Premonition and Deadly Premonition 2, he made some very high-quality games which were bug-free, they were played really well, and so on and so forth. Then comes Deadly Premonition 2, and it plays terribly. To me, that tells me that it was all deliberate. He's deliberately made it. No, it's absolutely deliberate. I am 100% certain that everything in that game is there because that's exactly what he wanted to make.
it crashes the console. Like
Yeah,
turns
exactly.
off.
That's deliberate. That's exactly what he wanted to make.
I haven't had this issue. When does this happen?
He made a video of like 5 minutes of him polishing a 10-pin bowling ball.
Oh, I
As
remember
his
this
promotion,
now, yeah.
as his promotion for Deadly Premonition 2. He said he's putting polish into it, and it was him polishing a 10. This guy is just trolling. Deadly Premonition 2.
He convinced a publisher to make a extremely expensive shitpost.
Yeah, exactly. This is it.
He made a shitpost as a game, and then was like, you know what? Hell yeah. I'm gonna sell this on the Switch as an exclusive because that's the way I want to do it.
This game was so satirical. It actually was satirical down to its mechanics and its bugs, because everything about that game is just tuned to take the piss out of everything. I think it's brilliant.
I still think the most definitive moment of Deadly Premonition is the first time you see the giant dogs outside, and it's fucking horrifying because nothing leads up to it, and you just see dogs, and it's like, all right, there's dogs.
No, I like the bit early on where you're told, oh, you got to go to this place at like 9 o'clock, by 9 o'clock, and there's no way to change time. Like you can't accelerate through time.
Run in a circle for like 12 hours.
Yeah, you're just running around in circles for 12 hours during game times.
Just smoking 17 packs of cigarettes outside the corner. I think we should end it there. That's a good point. Oh my god. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for listening, obviously, and thank you to our esteemed guests and, obviously our special guest for this period. Nart, thank you very much for coming and espousing your wisdom. It's very much appreciated. Where can we find you if our listeners would like to find you?
Yeah, you can look for Witchbeam Games, which is the company that I am operating with several other individuals where we make games. You can also look for me on Twitter at Sanatana Mishra, which sounds like a lot, and yeah, good luck ever spelling that.
And make sure you buy, if you haven't played Assault Android Cactus yet, make sure you play it on whatever platform you can. You can play it on
good ass game.
Everything, basically, isn't it? It's on everything.
Yeah, it's pretty much on everything. It's on the Switch, PS4, Xbox One, PC. No Dreamcast yet.
It's been around a while. I remember. I think it was like the first time I went to Tokyo Game Show. You were there, showing it off.
Yeah, that was amazing. Actually,
that was like 6 years ago or something.
Don't make me feel. Quit making me feel bad about not having released a new game recently. There will be new games. There's Unpacking coming from Tim and Ren soon. That looks fantastic. If you're into that, I'm not actively working on it day to day, so that's why I say it looks fantastic rather than it is, because I only play it intermittently to give serious feedback. And I'm working on my own little puzzle game, which is tentatively coming out in the next 6 months time frame, but we'll see how that goes.
We will keep our eyes out for the news and certainly spread it around digitallydownloaded.net as soon as you can tell us about it. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you everyone again for listening, and we will see you all next month.
Oh, one last thing, you get to choose the music as the guest.
Oh, yeah.
I have chosen, and I don't know if you'll be able to use this for copyright reasons, but we'll see.
Oh, we just break copyright, it's okay.
Yeah, the best is yet to come from Metal Gear Solid 1.
Oh, we're going to steal that. It's okay. It's a good song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck
We're
it.
pirates.
If I get... No, you can't attack both the UK and Australia at the same time. That's not how that works.
They can't arrest us all.
The sun is a shield in our mask. Cure the harlot, the lame, the shame. Cure the harlot, the lean, the shame. And keep it light and tall for me to be wrong. And keep it light and tall, 'cause she